The desert wind carried a dry heat that distorted the horizon, turning every distant outline into a trembling mirage. The land was silent, lifeless, and cruelly open, offering no shelter and no mercy. But somewhere between the dunes and the shattered clay ground, in a lonely patch of scorched earth, a small sound broke the stillness, a faint, trembling breath, the whimper of someone who had already lost almost everything. Beneath a towering cactus, a little girl, bruised, exhausted, and terrified, sat tied with rough ropes that had burned her skin raw. Her face was streaked with dirt and tears, and her eyes, wide, glassy, and desperate, searched the empty desert for help she no longer believed would come. The sun punished her from above, the heat blurring her vision, and every passing minute seemed to drain her life a little more. She had cried for hours, but now she only sat in silence, trembling, clinging to the last fading spark of hope. Before we begin, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of good hearts, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your engagement helps stories like this reach more people. Far away, a patrol vehicle made its slow path along the edge of the desert. Inside were Officer Grant, a seasoned K-9 handler, and his two trained dogs, Rex and Shadow, both German shepherds, both loyal, disciplined, and fiercely intuitive. Grant had taken this unusual route because something about the morning radio chatter bothered him. Reports of a stolen vehicle abandoned near the dunes, footprints leading south into the wasteland, and something else, the tone of the dispatcher, uncertain, uneasy. It wasn't an official call for a search, but Grant had learned long ago that instincts save lives, especially in places where cries for help can vanish into the wind before reaching human ears. Rex, the older of the two dogs, sat alert, head up, ears stiff, as though listening to something beyond human range. Shadow, younger and keener, paced restlessly in the back seat. Grant noticed their tension before he heard anything himself. Dogs didn't get agitated in silence unless something was wrong. When Rex suddenly whined and pressed his nose to the window, Grant slowed the vehicle. The desert looked empty as always, but Rex's instincts never lied. Grant opened the door and let both dogs out. Immediately Rex lowered his head to the ground, sniffing deeply, pacing in circles, then bolting forward toward the open desert. Shadow followed fast, their paws kicking up clouds of dust. Grant shouted after them, but the dogs ignored him, not out of disobedience, but because something urgent was pulling them. The further they went, the stronger the scent became, the scent of fear, sweat, and something faintly metallic like dried blood. Rex's heart pounded faster as he ran. He didn't know exactly what he was searching for, but he felt it, the unmistakable presence of someone who needed saving. Every instinct within him sharpened, driving him forward. Meanwhile, the little girl's head drooped as dizziness washed over her. She had been tied up for hours. She didn't know who did it or why. Everything had happened too fast. She remembered walking with her mother near the roadside rest area, the sudden grab, the cloth against her face, the blur of movement, and then darkness. When she woke up, she was here, alone, bound, and surrounded by silence. She had screamed until her throat burned, but there was no answer. The desert swallowed every plea. Now, just as her eyelids began to flutter closed, she heard a sound, faint at first, like distant thunder. Her heart jumped. Was it a car? People? Or animals? The sound grew louder. Rapid steps. Heavy breathing. She lifted her head sluggishly, expecting danger, but what she saw made her breath catch. Two German shepherds sprinted toward her, one fast and lean, the other larger and more powerful. For a split second, panic surged, she was too weak to defend herself if they attacked. But then something strange happened. Instead of aggression, the dogs slowed as they approached her. Rex stopped first, lowering his head gently, sniffing her face and the ropes binding her. Shadow circled around her, his tail stiff, his eyes locked onto the distance as though guarding her from unseen threats. The girl froze, tears spilling again, but not from fear this time. Something about the dog's presence felt safe, warm, and protective. Rex nudged her cheek, as if reassuring her that she was no longer alone. Then, in a sudden burst of urgency, Rex lifted his head and barked, loud, sharp, insistent. Shadow echoed him. The desert vibrated with their cries. They were calling for their handler, demanding immediate help. Officer Grant heard the barking echo across the dunes and sprinted toward the sound, stumbling through sand, calling their names. When he reached the cactus and saw the scene, the little girl tied up, bruised and barely conscious, he felt his world lurch. He dropped to his knees, his hands trembling as he checked her wounds. She was dehydrated, scraped, terrified, but alive. Grant cut the ropes carefully while Rex pressed against the girl's shoulder protectively, as if shielding her from any further harm. Shadow stayed on high alert, occasionally glancing toward the horizon, ears twitching at every whisper of wind. As soon as the ropes fell away, the girl collapsed into Grant's arms, sobbing weakly. Grant wrapped his uniform jacket around her trembling frame and gave her water in small sips, careful not to overwhelm her. She clung to him desperately, and Rex rested his head on her knee, sensing her fear and needing her to feel safe. Once he steadied her breathing, Grant carried her toward the patrol vehicle. Rex and Shadow followed closely, guiding them like guardians escorting someone fragile and precious. But danger still lingered in the air. When Grant reached the vehicle, he radioed urgent backup. As he buckled the girl into the seat, Rex began pacing nervously, sniffing the wind again. Shadow growled softly. Something wasn't right. Within minutes, a cloud of dust appeared on the horizon, a truck speeding toward them. Grant froze. It wasn't backup. It was heading too fast, too aggressively. The girl tensed. Her breathing quickened. She recognized that truck. The men who abducted her had returned. Grant stood tall, positioning himself between the vehicle and the oncoming truck. But he wasn't alone. Rex moved to Grant's left side, Shadow to his right, both tense and ready. Their training kicked in instantly. These weren't just pets, but police dogs prepared to defend lives. The truck skidded to a stop several yards away, and a man stepped out, furious, panicked, and reckless. He shouted, demanding the girl back, claiming she had seen something she wasn't supposed to see. His movements were wild, unpredictable. Grant ordered him to freeze, voice steady but cold. The men ignored him and charged. He never reached them. Rex lunged first, intercepting him with controlled force, knocking him to the ground. Shadow circled behind, barking fiercely, preventing any chance of escape. Grant quickly moved in, restraining the men with handcuffs as the two dogs kept him pinned in place. It was over in seconds, a perfect display of discipline, instinct, and loyalty. The girl watched from the patrol car, tears streaking her dirt-covered cheeks. She wasn't crying from fear anymore, but from overwhelming relief. She had been abandoned, dragged into terror, and left to die in the desert, but two dogs had found her when hope was nearly gone. When backup arrived, paramedics rushed to her side. As they lifted her onto a stretcher, she kept reaching her hand out toward Rex and Shadow. The dogs walked beside her until the very last moment, their eyes never leaving her. At the hospital, the girl's mother arrived within hours. The moment she saw her daughter, alive, safe, wrapped in blankets, she collapsed in tears, holding her close as though she would never let go again. Nurses, officers, and bystanders were moved to silence by the raw emotion filling the room. But the most unbelievable moment came when the girl, still weak and recovering, whispered something to her mother. She said she remembered being too scared to breathe, too tired to cry, and too hopeless to believe anyone would find her. And then she said something else, something that brought tears even to the hardened officers standing nearby. She said she survived because when she saw the dogs running toward her, she felt, for the first time since her nightmare began, that someone truly cared whether she lived or died. The days that followed were filled with news reports, interviews, and public gratitude. Rex and Shadow were celebrated as heroes across the state. Awards were given, ceremonies held, and countless strangers sent messages of thanks and admiration. But none of that compared to the moment the girl finally visited the police station weeks later. She was still healing, physically and emotionally, but when she walked into the K-9 unit and saw Rex and Shadow again, her entire face lit up with pure joy. The dogs rushed toward her, tails wagging wildly, as if they remembered every second of the moment they found her. She wrapped her arms around both of them, burying her face in their fur, whispering, thank you for not giving up on me." In that moment, the room became silent. Officers watched with softened eyes, some turning away to hide the emotion that swept through them. It was a moment that transcended training, duty, or heroism. It was the pure bond of trust between a child who had been broken and two dogs who refused to let her fall. As months passed, the girl found strength again. Her nightmares faded. Her laughter returned. And she would often visit Rex and Shadow, bringing treats and sitting with them for hours, feeling safe in their presence.